Hey everybody, welcome back to the Federalist Papers series, to be followed by the Anti-Federalist Paper series. And my apologies up front. Sometimes I record a couple of these together out of convenience. And apparently over the weekend, counting was difficult for me. I released Federalist 21, 22, and 23 in reverse order. I think 22, 23, and 21 was the order. My apologies. Did it from the phone and just fat fingered it and screwed it all up. But welcome back to the series. Let me ask you something. Like, what happens when the government decides that you do not need to be armed because they are armed enough for you? That is the core fear that Federalist number 24 is wrestling with. Standing armies in peacetime, federal power, and whether a free people can stay free when government holds the monopoly on force. And yes, this connects directly to the Second Amendment, even though the Bill of Rights wasn't written yet. What's going on, everybody? My name is Jared, and welcome back to Guns and Gadgets. Today, we're continuing the Federalist Paper series, and we're going to break down Federalist number 24 that was written by Alexander Hamilton and first published in New York newspapers on December 19th of 1787. It's a long ways from 2026, yet you're going to find some parallels here. This one is all about the controversial topic of the day, keeping federal troops, standing forces, during peacetime, and why the Constitution gives Congress the power to raise and support armies. Now, if you are a liberty-minded American, especially a Second Amendment advocate, your radar should already be screaming. Standing armies? Federal troops? Centralized power? Peacetime forces? That's exactly how free societies get strangled. So today, we're going to do this in 3 layers. Number 1, what Hamilton's arguing and what he's responding to, rather. And 2, why people are terrified of standing armies. And then 3, how this ties directly to the Second Amendment, militias, and the founders' blueprint for balancing power. So let's get into this. Federalist number 24 is Hamilton answering a very specific anti-federalist attack. The anti-federalists, people who were skeptical of the new Constitution, were saying that the Constitution will allow a permanent standing army, and that a standing army is a tool of tyranny, and that federal control over the military will crush the states. And once you have a standing army, the government can enforce anything, even unconstitutional laws. Now, that fear wasn't paranoia in a vacuum. The colonists had lived under British rule, where soldiers were used to enforce political control, and they knew European history. Kings didn't keep armies just in case. They kept armies to stay in power and crush the resistance. So Hamilton steps in and basically says, look, your fear is understandable, but the Constitution doesn't create a monster. It creates a controlled system with checks. And the reality of America's security means we can't pretend that armies aren't necessary. Hamilton's main point was simple. The United States has real security threats, even in peacetime. He argues that it's unrealistic to think that we can rely entirely on temporary forces raised at the last second. Why? Well, in Hamilton's day, the country had vast and unstable frontiers. Conflicts could flare up quickly, and attacks could happen without warning. If you have to build your defense from scratch every single time, you're already too late. Hamilton emphasizes that you can't maintain national defense infrastructure, especially frontier forts, without troops to man them. If you build forts but refuse to garrison them, you're basically putting up scarecrows and calling it security. Hamilton draws a distinction between a massive permanent army used to dominate the people versus a limited force used for defense or border security and maintaining posts. His message was, not all permanent forces are automatically tyranny. Now, the size, control, and political structure matter. And here's the part that Hamilton leans on heavily here. Congress controls funding. Under the Constitution, Congress can raise and support armies, but appropriations for the army cannot be for more than 2 years at a time. That means, at least on paper, no president gets a blank check for a permanent federal army without ongoing approval by representatives of the people. Hamilton's argument is, if you are afraid of a standing army, focus on how it's paid for and controlled. The Constitution builds in recurring public checks, elections and appropriations. So the logic is, the people elect Congress, Congress controls the purse, the army can't exist without funding, therefore the army is indirectly accountable to the people. Now, as modern Americans, we can debate how well that works today in practice. But in Hamilton's framing, this is an anti-tyranny mechanism. Now let's be fair, even if Hamilton's structure sounds reasonable, the anti-federalists' fear has a serious historical basis. Standing armies have repeatedly been used to enforce political control, intimidate dissent, centralize authority, disarm the population, and make resistance impossible. And here's the key point for this channel. A government that holds a monopoly on force will eventually treat the people as subjects. It is not conspiracy, that's political reality across centuries. So the anti-federalists said, if you give the federal government the power to maintain permanent troops, you're giving it the instrument that tyrants always grab first. Hamilton's response is basically, yes, armies can be dangerous, but the world is dangerous. We need defense, and the Constitution limits abuse. And this is the internal tension here. Security versus liberty. The Federalist 24 is one of the earliest, clearest examples of the founders openly battling that tension. Now let's connect this directly to the Second Amendment. Federalist 24 is written before the Bill of Rights is adopted, but it deals with the exact ingredients that produce the Second Amendment. Fear of centralized military power, suspicion of standing armies, belief that the people must remain capable of defense, and belief that state militias play a role in checking federal dominance. Here's the concept. If federal government has professional troops and the people are disarmed, then the government's force becomes absolute. The founders' philosophy wasn't trust power, it was divide power, counterbalance power, and never make the people dependent on government for protection. And that's the heart of the Second Amendment's civic meaning. The right of the people to keep and bear arms as a safeguard against the concentration of force. The militia concept, especially as understood in the founding era, was not a government program. It was an idea that the people themselves are the reserve of defense. So if the federal government keeps some standing troops for forts and frontier defense, the militia system ensures states retain defensive capacity, the people are armed and trained, and power is not concentrated exclusively in a federal military class. Whether modern government has honored that balance is a separate discussion, but that balance is the blueprint. This essay is one more brick in the wall proving that the founders were obsessed with one question. How do we prevent a government from becoming the thing we fought a revolution to escape? Some of us are asking that right now in 2026. And one of their answers, the founders, was don't let government be the only armed entity in society. So let me summarize Hamilton in the strongest way possible. America has had real threats. Defense requires some continuity. Fortifications and frontier security can't be purely ad hoc. The Constitution doesn't create unchecked military power. Civilian control and funding limits provide guardrails. And an informed electorate can restrain abuse through representation. And many will say we don't have an informed electorate anymore. Now, Hamilton isn't saying standing armies are good. He's saying standing armies may be necessary and the Constitution makes them manageable. Now, here's where we bring this into the modern world in a way that matters to you and I, or you and me. Hamilton's safeguards rely on assumptions that Congress will jealously guard its power, that representatives will fear public backlash. Do they anymore? And that elections will punish overreach. Do they anymore? And that the public will remain vigilant. Do they anymore? But if the public becomes disengaged and institutions become captured, then those safeguards weaken. And I would say that's where we are right now. And when safeguards weaken, the old anti-federalist fear comes roaring back. A permanent security apparatus grows. Its budget grows. ATF. The power grows. And then it starts treating the people as the threat. That's when the Second Amendment matters the most. Not as a slogan, but as a principle. A free people must never be structurally dependent on the government for the means of defense. People, please hear that. Please understand that. Because once force is centralized, rights become permissions. Federalist 24 matters because it shows the founders weren't naive. They knew standing armies were dangerous. They also knew the world was dangerous. So they tried to build a system that could defend the nation without destroying liberty. And that struggle, the balancing act between necessary defense and the danger of a centralized force, is the same struggle that we're living with right now in 2026. The question never goes away. Who holds the power? Who holds the force? And what happens if that power stops respecting we the people? That is why the Second Amendment is not a side issue. It's part of the architecture. Think about that. Blackout Coffee is running our annual President's Day sale. President's Day is about strength, independence, and standing your ground. We are honoring it the right way with serious savings on strong American coffee. If you believe in bold coffee and American values, this is the time to stock up and save up to 30% site-wide. blackoutcoffee.com/GNG. Guys and gals, if you found this breakdown useful, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and share this with someone who thinks that the Federalist Papers are old, irrelevant history. This is the blueprint, and if we don't know it, we can't defend it. I got a question for you, and I want your honest feedback here because I'm trying to make this as educational as possible for as many people as possible. Are you enjoying the series? And I ask that because I've lost about 500 subscribers since I've started doing this, and most of them are coming from the Federalist Papers series according to YouTube. So let me know what you think about them. And I want to hear from you also with this. Do you think the founders' checks on standing armies are still working today, or has the balance shifted too far? Drop your take in the comments. I read a ton of them. I appreciate y'all. Be safe, stay vigilant, carry a gun to keep you, your friends, your family, your community safe. Stay armed and stay free. I'll see y'all on the next one. Take care.